Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, March 16th. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. The United States, France, and the United Nations have all condemned Israel's decision to reclassify over 2,000 dunams of land in the Jordan Valley as state land. The land tract is located in Area C under full Israeli control and is within the boundaries of the Megillot Regional Council. It borders both sides of Highway 1 as it heads towards the Dead Sea. The Defense Ministry's civil administration signed the decision last week as U.S. Vice President Joe Biden left Israel, and now there is a 45-day appeal process. Peace Now called the decision Israel's latest step in what appears to be an ongoing process of land expropriations and settlement expansion. Palestinian official Saeb Erekat condemned the move, saying it was part of Israel's plan to impose an apartheid regime on occupied Palestine. The U.S. also weighed in on the matter.
Quite frankly, we've seen these reports. We're concerned about this reported expropriation of about, I think you said 580, I think, acres in the West Bank as state land, which is a significant increase over the prior announcement. This decision is, in our view, the latest step in what appears to be an ongoing process of land expropriations, settlement expansions, and legalizations of outposts that is fundamentally undermining the prospects for a two-state solution. As we've said before, we strongly oppose any steps that accelerate settlement expansion, which raise serious questions about Israel's long-term intentions. And as we've repeatedly made clear, we continue to look to both sides to demonstrate with actions and policies a genuine commitment to a two-state solution.
Palestinian leaders express hope for a new French peace initiative. France's special envoy to the matter, Pierre Vermont, met on Tuesday with PA officials in Ramallah to discuss the plan. Chief Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat called the French ideas timely and realistic. He called for the international community to support the initiative, which he said was the only alternative in town. During meetings in Jerusalem, the envoy encountered skepticism. The Foreign Ministry's Director General Dori Gold said that during his talks with the French envoy, he submitted a number of questions to understand the logic behind the plan. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu voiced opposition to the initiative, which aims to bring the two sides back to the negotiation table in this summer. He insists that direct talks between the parties without preconditions was preferable to international involvement. President Reuven Rivlin is in Moscow for talks with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Rivlin will be the first diplomat to meet face-to-face with Putin following the Russian leader's surprise announcement this week that Russia will pull out forces from Syria. Topping the agenda are regional developments and the implications of Russia's sudden disengagement from the war-stricken country. En route to Moscow, Rivlin told reporters that Israel is seeking to strengthen ties with Russia, bolster coordination, and ensure that Iran and Hezbollah do not emerge stronger. Rivlin stressed that while everyone understands that Islamic State is a danger to the world, the Shiite fundamentalist Islam of Iran is no less of a threat. Earlier today, Rivlin laid a wreath at the site of the tomb of the unknown soldier at Red Square. He later visited the Russian State Library, where he was shown the David Ginsburg collection of thousands of Hebrew manuscripts, and requested that they be delivered to Israel. The collection was purchased by the Zionist movement during the last century for a sum of over 500,000 rubles, but they were not sent due to the First World War and the Russian Communist Revolution. Joining us now in the studio is Russian affairs expert Dr. Stephanie Hoffman of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Dr. Hoffman, thanks for joining us. So we see that President Rivlin is now in Moscow, and this visit was arranged before Putin announced that the Russians would be pulling out of Syria. And yet, now is even a greater time than ever for the cooperation between Israel and Moscow, isn't it?
Well, it did turn out to be, I think, in a way, lucky for Rivlin that he is the first one to arrive there. It's clear that from Israel's point of view, this is not really just an ordinary visit where the whole range of topics are going to be discussed, because indeed he delayed a trip to Australia in order to come specifically to Russia. And this suggests that indeed his focus is on the immediate problem, and that is Iran, Hezbollah, and Syria. And the other questions are kind of a bit on the side.
So he is the president of Israel, and he was the one invited by Putin. And before he departed, he was actually briefed by the prime minister and also heads of the security branches. Is the President Rivlin the right one to be doing these sort of talks?
You know, in the past, we've also had prime ministers go, and each one says, I am going to do this, I'm going to present all the problems. But the bottom line, frankly, is Israel is not a major player in the Middle East. And we certainly can present our opinion. But even the political leaders have only gotten so much. In other words, Putin, maybe we don't know what he wants, and I think it's very unlikely he's going to tell Rivlin what he wants, but I doubt he would have told Netanyahu. Nevertheless, I think there are certain things that can come out positively from the visit, and that is it gives Putin an opportunity to say in front of the world, yes, I am going to destroy terrorism and I'm going to keep Israel's security concerns in mind. And so there, he said it. And in that sense, it doesn't matter who he says it to. The real discussions can be carried on behind the scenes.
How concerned should Israel be about the Russian withdrawal from Syria of the partial forces?
Well, I don't think, I mean, the question is we have to see where it will lead to. And we have the talks going on now. I think there's a great deal of skepticism how much these talks will succeed in actually bringing a solution. There is a suggestion that by withdrawing now, Russia's sending a message to Assad, you can't get everything you want. There has to be some kind of agreement of a gradual perhaps federalization or some taking into consideration others, and you perhaps cannot stay there forever.
Well, do you think that Russia is going to continue to support Assad?
Up to a point.
Yes.
Up to the point of Russia's own greater interests, both in the Middle East region. Also, don't forget that Russia has serious economic problems at this point, and they also need the help of Saudi Arabia and the other oil countries with regard to oil prices, which was traditionally Russia's main source of income, and they're so low, it's seriously affecting the Russian economy. So they can't sort of unconditionally support Assad.
Dr. Hoffman, what role do you think Putin is trying to take on in the international community?
He's trying to show that he is, again, a serious player on the world scene, perhaps even, I mean, he knows he can't come back to being a Cold War superpower, but nevertheless, look, Obama is talking to him again and mentioning, and perhaps people suggest there may have been some kind of behind-the-scenes agreement with regard to the future of Assad, because that seems to be such a difficult stumbling block at this point. So he has shown that he is an important player on the international scene, and he hopes to be less of a pariah, which happened as a result of annexation of Crimea and the invasion, the action in Ukraine. So he's trying to restore his glory, so to speak.
He certainly is an interesting character. Dr. Stephanie Hoffman of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, thanks so much for talking to IBA News.
You're welcome.
Iran has also pulled out of its revolutionary guards from Syria, and not just Russia. This, according to Middle East expert Jonathan Spire, who told IBA's Margot Dudkevich that he believes that chances of a ceasefire in the war-torn country are remote.
Projection in Florida. NBC News is projecting that when all the...
Well, we'll try to get back to that in a few minutes. Demanding increased security and deterrence measures to combat the ongoing wave of terror attacks, hundreds of Jewish residents from the communities in Judea and Samaria participated in a protest march from Karmei Tzur to the Gush Etzion junction. Some marchers carried Israeli flags and others sang Am Yisrael Chai. A large numbers of police and soldiers secured yesterday's march, which ended without incident. In the past 6 months, there has been a number of deadly attacks in the Gush Etzion district with infiltrations into communities as well as the Gush Etzion junction. The new Ramon International Airport, named after Ilan Ramon, Israel's first astronaut who died in the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster in 2003, is slated to begin operations in exactly 1 year in Eilat. Journalists were given a glimpse of the new terminal under construction. If all goes according to plan, the new airport in Timna, just north of Eilat, is well on its way towards completion. Transportation Minister Israel Katz vowed that the first passenger jet would use the airport before next Passover. The new airport is capable of handling almost 30 aircraft and designed to handle about 2 million travelers a year. The road to Eilat from the field has been widened to deal with the traffic, and in the future there will be a railway directly to the resort town. Travel time by bus and car is expected to be about 20 minutes. The 50-meter-high control tower is already standing, and the terminal with its duty-free shops is under construction. The runway is a whopping 3.5 kilometers long, allowing jumbo jets to land and take off. The new Ramon airport is budgeted at 1.7 billion shekels, a sum that is being paid for from the sale of the real estate of the old field in downtown Eilat and from airport authority taxes. Authorities say the international airport will be an alternative to Ben Gurion and handle flights from Europe and internal routes. It will also provide a second international airport in times of emergency, such as when Ben Gurion was shut down during Operation Protective Edge in 2014 when rockets targeted it. The economic impact of the larger airport is expected to help the resort town's economy by bringing in more foreign tourists. Turning to the U.S. presidential campaign, and once again it was a big night for frontrunners Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton. The two rivals captured key wins in 5 state primaries. Clinton's victories in Florida, Illinois, Ohio, and North Carolina cast doubt on U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders' ability to overtake her for the Democratic Party's nomination. On the other side of the campaign, Trump swept 3 states, driving his contender Marco Rubio out of the White House race. Trump's win in Florida, Rubio's home state, Illinois, and North Carolina brought him closer to the number of delegates he needs to win the nomination, wreaking more chaos for his Republican Party, which is deeply fractured by his candidacy. The most surprising outcome came from Senator Rubio's home state of Florida. After failing to secure his nomination there, Rubio suspended his campaign and decided to pull out of the race, leaving Governor John Kasich victory in his home state of Ohio as the last establishment Republican candidate. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, who sought to fashion himself as a lead anti-Trump alternative, was outclassed by Trump in every one of the 5 states.
The politics of resentment against other people will not just leave us a fractured party, they're going to leave us a fractured nation. They're going to leave us as a nation where people literally hate each other because they have different political opinions. That we find ourselves at this point is not surprising, for the warning signs have been here for close to a decade. While it is not God's plan that I be president in 2016 or maybe ever, and while today my campaign is suspended, the fact that I've even come this far is evidence of how special America truly is. And all the reason more why we must do all we can to ensure that this nation remains a special place. I ask the American people, do not give in to the fear. Do not give in to the frustration.
Reeling in their victories, here's what the winners of this round had to say.
So again, I just want to congratulate everybody. This is a really interesting process. It's an amazing process. It's very tough, but it is by the end, if you get to the end, you can handle a lot of things, including pressure. That I can tell you, because there's nothing like it. Lies, deceit, viciousness, disgusting reporters, horrible people. Sure. Some are nice. Some are nice. Some really disgusting people back there, I have to tell you. And I just want to say, we're going to go forward, and we're going to win, but more importantly, we're going to win for the country. We're going to win, 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 and we're not stopping. We're going to have great victories for our country. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, I'll tell you, this is another Super Tuesday for our campaign. Thank you, Florida. Thank you, North Carolina. Thank you, Ohio. Tonight, it's clearer than ever that this may be one of the most consequential campaigns of our lifetimes. The next president will walk into the Oval Office next January, sit down at that desk, and start making decisions that will affect the lives and the livelihoods of everyone in this country, indeed everyone on this planet.
And now back to our interview with Jonathan Spire. He says that Iran has also pulled out its Revolutionary Guards from Syria and not just Russia. And he spoke to our IBA's Margot Dudkevich.
I think that Assad will continue to enjoy Putin's support. It's not that the support is being withdrawn. The support has been there, of course, since the beginning of the war in 2011. What happened was that last September, the regime was in real distress, and the rebellion was looking to be about to break into the western coastal area of Syria, in Latakia province, the regime's heartland. And so the Russians had to sort of up the support in order to prevent that, and that is the background to the Russian air intervention from September 30th. And to a great extent, the Russians have achieved their goals. Whereas, the regime is now safe. The rebellion has received a very serious blow in Latakia province and in Idlib, Aleppo, northwest Syria. No longer any danger of the regime facing that rebel entrance into the area. So the Russians can afford now to scale down their support, having achieved to a great extent the goals that they set themselves.
Now, Israel was taken by surprise by his decision. Does the withdrawal of Russian troops mean that we're likely to see a spillover into our northern border?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's likely to have that effect. To some extent, Israel was in fact concerned about the Russian intervention because Israel's been keen throughout the war to make sure that the area just east of Quneitra Crossing, let's say the area facing Israel, was controlled by the rebellion or elements among the rebellion rather than by the Syrian regime and its Iranian and Hezbollah backers, because Israel considers, and there is evidence to support the view, that the Iranians would like to turn that area into a new platform for attacks on Israel. And there was concern that with Russian air cover, it might be possible for the regime and the Iranians and Hezbollah to make their way down to that border. The withdrawal of Russian air support actually, of course, now makes that far less likely. And that, in fact, is a reason probably for some quiet satisfaction on the part of Israel, which was quite concerned about the implications of the Russian intervention.
Now, the Syrian civil war is entering its 6th year. How much of Syria remains in Assad's control?
Well, Assad has, the usual figure given is around 20–25% of the territory of the country, but he also has control of, it's generally considered, just over 50% of the people living in Syria.
There are numerous factions fighting in Syria. Which are the ones Israel should be concerned about?
Well, Israel's main concern throughout remains with the government side and its various Iran-backed allies, of course, Lebanese Hezbollah being chief among them. And that remains very much Israel's concern. There are also elements close to the Israeli border, close to Quneitra Crossing now, who are connected to the Islamic State.
With Russia removing its troops, wouldn't this in fact make Iran stronger, gain a stronger foothold in Syria?
Well, no, because Iran is also withdrawing troops, interestingly. The Iranians have withdrawn the greater part of the Revolutionary Guard's personnel who were engaged fighting on behalf of Assad in the northwest of the country. What's happened is that over the last 6 months, both the Russians and the Iranians have, in a sense, been engaged in a full-court press, so to speak, to push back the rebellion in northwest Syria, to push it away from the areas most closest to the regime in the northwest of the country. And that goal has largely been achieved.
Talks in Geneva to achieve a ceasefire continue. What are the chances of the sides agreeing to a total cessation in hostilities this time round?
I think the chances remain somewhat remote because of the basic barrier to progress, which is the future role of President Bashar Assad himself. Of course, the rebellion are absolutely clear that he must step down at the beginning of any transition. And the regime and its supporters, of course, are equally clear that that's absolutely not on the cards. And on the contrary, they very much see Assad, of course, as the legitimate president of the country. At the same time, it's interesting to note that the ceasefire that came in on February 27th has largely held. So it's not impossible to imagine a situation in which, while there is no political or diplomatic progress with regard to a solution, at the same time the sides may well try to find a way to keep the ceasefire going, because at the end of the day that's kind of good for all sides.
Taking a look at the local finance, and the shekel put in a mixed performance where share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up across the board. Here's a look at the late afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team says the rain is expected to continue tomorrow and taper off on Friday. Temperatures will remain low. Here are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's our broadcast of IBA News for today. Please join us again tomorrow when Laura Cornfield will be here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Ariel Sullivan wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.